Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us here today. I'm Kathy Swan, State Representative from District 147, Cape Girardeau. And behind me are a few of the Legislative Task Force on Dyslexia members. Eva Trumbauer, the Speech and Language Pathologist. Erica Lemke, who's the Chair of the Special Education Department of University of Missouri. Susan Bonnet, who is an owner of Above and Beyond Dyslexia. Jennifer Edwards, co-founder of Decoding Dyslexia Missouri. Noelle Life, an academic language therapist and representative from the Academic Language Therapists Association. Anita Cutton-Cooler, who's Master Certified Dyslexia Tutor. And Kim Stuckey, the dyslexia specialist from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Between 10 to 20% of the population is affected by dyslexia. And according to the National Institutes of Health, dyslexia is the leading cause of reading failure in the nation's school dropouts. Reading failure is the most commonly shared characteristic of juvenile justice offenders, and it's thought that 80 to 90% of the prison population may be affected at a tremendous cost to our society. Early identification and early reading interventions can significantly reduce the percentage of children reading below grade level. Yet our schools have not been routinely screening nor routinely accommodating for dyslexic students. And training for our teachers is optional, not required. In 2016, the General Assembly passed House Bill 2379 to specifically address this critical issue. The bill contained two main provisions regarding dyslexia that are now in state statute. Beginning in the 2018-19 school year, all Missouri public schools will begin screening students for dyslexia, provide classroom supports for them, and offer 2 hours of in-service training annually for our teachers in our schools. The bill also created the Legislative Task Force on Dyslexia, a 21-member task force representing a variety of professions and professional organizations. By statute, the statute indicates the task force has been charged with making recommendations for a statewide system for identification, intervention, and delivery of supports for students with dyslexia, including the development of resource materials and professional development activities. Regarding screening, the task force recommends all K through 3 students should be screened for dyslexia and related disorders, with grades 1 through 3 screened within 30 days of the first day of attendance, and kindergartners screened no later than January 31st each year. In addition, schools should screen transfer students or students identified as struggling, meaning that they are identified by the teacher, by the parent, or by the student scoring in the lower 30th percentile of assessments. For students identified as needing help as a result of this screening, there are specific recommendations from the task force for an intervention system for these students. They include sufficient training for our teachers and instructors, targeted intervention for students, adherence to frequency, duration, and intensity of the program, frequent progress monitoring, comprehensiveness, guidance and indicators for students needing special assessment and evaluation, best practice, support materials, and technology resources and appropriate training for supporting students in the classroom will be recommended by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education based upon the recommendations of this task force. Schools must ensure that staff-designated screeners are trained and that all administrators and teachers are trained in the characteristics of dyslexia and the necessity of classroom supports that include accessible educational material and assistive technology. The task force strongly recommends that schools require 2 hours of in-service training annually. The current requirement in the statute is for schools to offer. The task force believes that it should be required. Our institutions of higher education also have a very important role to play in addressing dyslexia in our K-12 educational system. It is critical that teacher education programs in Missouri colleges and universities address dyslexia characteristics, the identification and intervention in their teacher preparation curriculum. Such curriculum and programs should be grounded in the science of reading, dyslexia and related disorders, and the methods of structured literacy instruction and intervention, so that every teacher in our state is knowledgeable and properly prepared for reading in every classroom. Finally, the task force encourages the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to collaborate with our partners in early childhood as well. Through collaboration with preschools, parents as teachers, the Coordinating Board for Early Childhood, foster care organizations, and the Division of Children's Services, their members would benefit from training and education regarding dyslexia and related disorders. By identifying and addressing this reading failure, students will not only be successful in school, but successful in life. If our children do not learn to read, they will and cannot read to learn. This small investment today will have long-term benefits for not only students and families, but for the economic and social benefits of our communities and for our state. Representing 12 months of work, the Legislative Task Force on Dyslexia is pleased to submit its report to the Governor, the President Pro Tem of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, the Joint Committee on Education, the State Board of Education, and the citizens of Missouri. And I would now like to turn it over to task force members who may want to share information with you as well.
Thank you, Kathy. So at this point, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education will begin developing the guidelines consistent with the report recommendations from the Legislative Task Force. The guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, those will be released by December 31st this calendar year for implementation school year 2018-19. Sure. Kim Stuckey, Director of Dyslexia Specialist with the Department of Education.
I'm Erica Lemke, Chair of the Department of Special Ed at the University of Missouri, and I think in particular we're really excited about not only what this bill will mean for children and families in the state of Missouri, but also particularly excited about what this could bring to our teacher preparation institutions. It's critically important that this content is delivered and infused in our teacher preparation courses at the colleges and universities in Missouri. So excited about what the possibilities this might hold to bring about perhaps further encouragement to integrate that content.
I'm Eva Trumbauer. I represent the Missouri Speech Language and Hearing Association. I'm a speech language pathologist. The 21 members of this task force, I believe, came together from multiple walks of life, people who have dyslexia, who have children with dyslexia, who are experts in the field. And I think the document that we have provided to all of the entities that Representative Swan just mentioned has addressed the statutes quite well. And we've looked at both the letter of the law, the intent of the laws in supporting our children and families in Missouri with dyslexia. The incidence is actually quite high, up to 1 in 5 children, as Representative Swan might, I believe, mentioned earlier. And this is a large part of our population who will now receive support in early identification and proper intervention as they succeed academically, enter the workforce, and become productive citizens of Missouri.
Hi, my name is Susan Bonnet. I'm the owner of Above and Beyond Dyslexia. I've been a classroom teacher for many years, also a Title I reading specialist as well. I resigned my position to open up Above and Beyond Dyslexia. I have a daughter with dyslexia, and I have dyslexia mildly, so dyslexia does run in our family. So you can read, you can succeed, but it's always been a struggle. So it's a pleasure of mine to join the task force and to be able to share with you guys so we can now begin to make a major difference in the lives of dyslexic children.
am Jennifer Edwards, and I'm co-founder of Decoding Dyslexia Missouri. And the findings of the task force, I think, will provide a huge win for parents with children with dyslexia. Up until this point, it was a burden on the parents really to determine why your child couldn't read. My child was assessed privately and also remediated privately, and that was a very expensive proposition. So by encouraging and requiring schools to screen children in K through 3 and then older children by request of a parent is a huge win for parents. And I think that schools will also develop remediation programs for those kids so that they can be taught to read in public school.
I'm Noelle Life, and I'm an academic language therapist, and I'm just excited to see the changes that are going to be coming up in our state. I think it'll mean a great difference for students, and I can't wait to see what happens with those adults that we change lives of. Thank you.
My name is Anita Kuttenkeuler. Yes, I will spell that. Kuttenkeuler. I am a retired public school teacher and now a private dyslexia tutor, which I've done for the last 12 years. I can't begin to tell you what an honor it's been to serve on this task force and also be part of creating a bill which really, or a law now, which really has opened a conversation that we have never been able to have before. And the children that I work with are the beneficiaries from this. It gives them hope, and they are very bright kids, and with a little hope, they can accomplish what anybody else can. Thank you.
Now you're welcome to ask questions if you so desire.
Sure. Last time I talked to you, you were talking about, I think it was a couple of months ago, you had a meeting here, and you were talking about whether to include further dyslexia assessments in the recommendations. And it was kind of noisy when you were going over that. So what did you come up with as far as that goes?
One of our recommendations is that we study advanced assessments as they would be needed and then follow through with interventions that then address the specific needs, reading needs and learning of a child. One of the recommendations also is the formation of assessment experts, asking the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to consider appointing a committee of assessment experts so that we can further explore what they might be, what they would recommend regarding assessment itself, and we'd be glad for any of the task members to further address that if you wish. All right.
So assessment's a major portion of implementation here. Find out.
Assessment and screening is the start. We have to have follow-through. Finding something is totally different than doing something about it. So first we must identify if there's a need, a student needs any additional intervention or intervention and any help. Then we actually have to do the work of providing classroom supports and intervention for students. And there may be severe dyslexia, may be mild dyslexia, as Susan had mentioned and Jennifer had mentioned as well. So depending on the degree of the reading failure, that is the layman's term that we can all certainly identify with when thinking about dyslexia, determining on the degree of the reading failure will indicate to us what interventions need to be taken. And we have to continue to monitor that student and the progress being made. Weekly progress monitoring is our recommendation of these students.
Do you see yourself in the front line of addressing dyslexia in kids?
I didn't initially. Arkansas also has a bill regarding dyslexia. I don't know how far they've gone with their particular program in the state of Arkansas, but I was told very, very recently that Missouri is being observed and watched by many other states in the nation because they feel like we have done a more comprehensive job of addressing not only screening, but what do we do after we screen and the interventions, that we continually monitor students. And we base our decisions on proven, effective, data-driven information. that may be all that might be needed with the child who is identified as being mildly dyslexic. And if any of the task force members would like to describe the range of interventions, certainly more than welcome to do so. It could be utilized for students.
You know, honestly, there's a range of interventions. Someone that's more profound as far as being a scribe, reading to that person, as far as all kinds of different accommodations that you could provide. And then someone, though, that more mildly, that feels like they have successfully, they're able to read the text, then would not need the text read to them. So there's a list of several different accommodations, resources, things through DESE that we, as far as support. And so several of those would end up dropping off as, or even someone that is mild would not need them as an advanced, as someone who is more profound.
But you discussed and kind of, I guess, explored what those applications would be in the classroom, or things like doing that, reading assessment with somebody up close or whatever.
Right. The thing about it is that you would start off and looking at each student individually and deciding as far as differentiating whether that student needed it. And so since dyslexia runs from mild to moderate, severe, and profound, someone mildly may not need as many accommodations or as many as that support needed because that student is successful in what's being given already, or they would need some support but not as much. Does that answer it?
I think it's important, back to Kathy's point about what's happening in other states, I believe that one of the reasons maybe Missouri is being watched is that it's my understanding that we're the only state that has mandated supports written into statute. So that will be something that other states will be looking to. But in regards to supports and accommodations, there are many levels of support. Many of those would be free. Many teachers already accommodate students in various ways without being mandated to do so. I think it's important when we look at a student's need and let that support or accommodation drive that need. We have lots of technology available in our schools from very, very early on. I think, again, we need to approach it in a way that says, what do you need, as opposed to here's your support, whether you need it or not. Here's an iPad, for example. What will you do with that device? As opposed to this is the need that you have is the iPad or a Chromebook that has extensions or some other technology built into it. Is that going to meet your need appropriately?
I think I'd like to say, relative to classroom accommodations, it's not a separate entity. It's all part and parcel. The issue becomes to appropriately identify students early on, to follow their needs with targeted interventions at the classroom level and whatever level of expertise their instruction involves. But during that process, let's not lose the valuable vocabulary, comprehension skills that students acquire. So the appropriate accommodations, whether they're high technological types or simple, easy types, such as positioning in the classroom or scribing or whatever accommodation, would be part of the students' educational programs so that they most efficiently and effectively access the curriculum of the schools.
And this is very much an individualized approach that maybe we're always not totally used to. It's assessing individual students and responding to individual student needs rather than a cookie-cutter approach. Very much the opposite of a cookie-cutter approach. Further questions?
What as far as stories?
Then we'll come back. The department will be, again, we have given some recommendations, some examples of what interventions are. We also have shared our thoughts regarding teacher training. The department will be developing the guidelines. So it's up to the department to take the information that we've submitted and give it to them for their recommendations for schools. And Kim is our dyslexia specialist at the department. Oh, Kim, if you have any additional information regarding.
Per statute, the schools aren't required to use the department for their trainings, but there will be some offerings available through the department that teachers can take advantage of. So beginning early next year, before the mandate goes into effect.
And I think some of the thought was that teachers have professional development activities every year in our schools, so that this would become a part of that. And hopefully it's the minimum part of that as well. You had another question.
Well, it was along those lines about how important it is to make sure that teachers are getting up to speed. How severe is the need for more attention in that area as far as college kids that are going to teach?
Well, as I mentioned, we determined from a very small number of witnesses that we had at one hearing. I'm not sure if you were able to attend that one, but it was about the colleges of education teacher preparation. Through that particular hearing, with so few witnesses who attended, we determined that we needed to send out a survey to get some greater response to that question as to what is being done in our teacher preparation programs in our institutions. What we discovered is little at all, sometimes absent. So we have some work to do, and one of the recommendations is that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education collaborate, which they already do, with the institutions of higher education on those teacher preparation programs. But specifically, this collaboration, we would like to see them infuse the characteristics of dyslexia, information about intervention, related disorders, all of those components of identifying and intervening and providing support for students as a part of every teacher preparation program in the state of Missouri. We did receive over 30 responses back. We also sent them to the departments of psychology or special education, psychology, and to the teacher prep programs themselves, representing 18 institutions and 30 responses. So we feel like we did our due diligence in determining what's going on to prepare teachers who are currently studying to become a teacher before they graduate from college. And we have some work to do there. And any further comments on it? No? Further questions?
Just a quick question.
Yes.
So the recommendation is kindergarten through third graders in the spring,
Yes.
first through third within 30 days of spring.
Yes. And kindergartners by January 31st of that school year. Anything else? We are very, very appreciative that you have taken time to be here today because you are helping us shed a light on this critical issue for our state and the success for our students and their ability to read and their ability to learn from reading. So we greatly appreciate you being here, and the news stories that you will share with the citizens for the state are very, very crucial, and we are so happy that you have taken the time to be with us today. Thank you.